Can everybody hear me? I don't have any. All right, welcome everyone. I'm assuming everybody can hear me. It's never used this technology. It seems interesting. So thank you for the absolute honor and privilege to be here today. And it's really going to be hopefully an interesting and engaging session. This conversation comes off a dear friend who just spoke now on the Enduring Family Enterprise, and Jeremy Chang, who we just co-wrote an article for FFI on enduring governance. And he did a study, and we kind of requested to add a different dimension, which was to look at the human system and bridge it to the family system. So as we're aware, change is happening at an unprecedented rate, which is creating more and more pressure on the traditional family structure and creating a larger gap between generations. And thus, innovative solutions are being created in order to support the families in generational continuity, in order to have authentic, open communication, to be able to build trust, and from that space, have the opportunity for generational continuity. So just to give a little background, I'm a third generation family business member myself. I was unfortunate enough, I can say, or fortunate both sides, to have a very painful experience in my mid-20s, spending up to 2 years accompanying my father as he exited the family business. And as I experienced the various conversations, I realized that there were many conversations that were not had, as a safe space did not exist. There were many misconceptions. There were many perspectives that completely were varied in terms of what actually happened in the last 4 decades. It was 4 decades of history that we were dealing with. And as a result, there was a lot of emotion and projection, especially in the space of the inability or lack of opportunity for self-actualization. And as a result, we did use mediators, and after 2 years, the exit happened, and it was a very painful exercise. And so from that experience, and for those who know me in other realms, I years later, at the age of 35, was diagnosed with stage 3 cancer. And as a result, I created a family health office for our own family, and eventually a multi-family health office 9 years ago. This is year 10 as we speak. So what I'd like us to consider is a different approach to how we are approaching the family system and the families. And that is to begin with the human system, which is the individual, so that we have a resilient space in order to build the bridge from the me to the we. As we know, those of us who serve many families, it's a yin and yang, which is, the me and the we, and based on the context and based on what is happening, we obviously focus one on the other. In Asia, especially with even myself and many of the colleagues and families we care for, the me is lost within the we. And it's how do we find and support the individual to express that me through self-actualization, through looking at how they want to express themselves. And as Jeremy, noted too, is how do we create that structure to bring entrepreneurship or intrapreneurship within the family enterprise. And then that helps us bridge to the unified we, which then is discussing and sharing a shared vision. So based on the experience we've had and decades of work, what we have introduced, but it's more about what we would love you to consider irrespective of where it comes from, is an integrative approach. to begin, like I said, with the me, looking at how do we build resilience, and resilience through physicality, the mental, emotional, and the relational. And when I mean physical, really going into depth, looking at nutrition, fitness, sleep, gut health, brain health, DNA, epigenetics, drivers of behavior, and of course, we do need to look at, the medical experience that we've each had. From that physical, we then may want to consider the mental, emotional, right? What is happening in terms of the processes in our thoughts, in our emotions? How is that impacting how we relate to ourselves and to others? What are the beliefs and patterns that we have absorbed or taken on consciously and subconsciously in this generation and intergenerationally? What is the bleed through that is happening between generations that is no longer serving, that is actually inhibiting us in full expression? Then in terms of relationships, really looking at what is the story driving my life? In my case, in one of the chapters of the book I've written, and in many cases of the families we serve, the question arises, am I good enough? And as we know, the question, living a life with a question of am I good enough, is not a positive state of being, right? So how can we recognize the story driving our lives and reframe it so that it is in our interest and the interest of our loved ones and the family at large? Then really looking at the concept of self-care and self-love. I was never taught that, and it was not there. Caring for others was a default, but caring for yourself and putting yourself first, or let's not even use that, even second, third, fourth, was not on the drawing board. So I had to learn that through a stage 3 cancer experience, which is not what we want, which is not what we signed up for, right? Then moving to my relationship with my loved ones, and as Jeremy said, my relationship to the larger family, the extended family, right? And then looking at, am I living in my truth? Am I living in alignment between my values, my talents, and my aspirations, right? Am I living an authentic life? In the new generation talks about passion, right? And what they're talking about is the inner calling, my inner genius. Am I expressing my inner genius in the way that I'm operating day to day? So once we've had an experience of self-discovery, of working on yourself in the physical realm, in the relational realm, and in the mental emotional realm on an individual level, we are now ready, because we've empowered ourselves, to then go outward. So we've now had a journey of inward where we can now consider to go outward, which is to the family system. And in that space, the first step to consider is, who am I in this family, vis-a-vis the family system? Who do I want to be? And what is expected of me? And how does that feel? Do I resonate? Am I comfortable? Is that what I signed up for? Is that what I want to be? Then looking at, what are my conscious and subconscious drivers of behavior in that relationship vis-a-vis the family system? And when I say family system, you begin with your parents, your siblings, and then of course move to the extended family if that exists. And then from there, we look at communication. How am I communicating? Right? And we're referring to, like you see, I'm moving my hand. With you, that may be okay. But with my own 2 boys who are now 18 and 21, that may seem aggressive. So looking at, how am I expressing myself verbally and non-verbally? The tonality with which I'm speaking, right? How is that impacting? Am I able to truly speak to be understood and listen to understand? Am I able to relate to the perspective? Am I open to the perspective of the other? Or am I caught up in my own expectations and impositions and judgments, and thus I'm projecting it, and as a result, getting resistance from the other individuals, be it your spouse or your siblings or your parents or your cousins, right? And then looking at, back to the space I spoke to about alignment, but from a family perspective. Is my, where do my values, my talents and aspirations stack up vis-a-vis the family? Am I able to align with the family? And Jeremy's case, as he spoke, with the business, because this exercise on an individual level, at a family level, and at a business level will bring clarity and unity, as we spoke about, that unified shared vision, right? And then to really sit in a room, right, together and really look at the collective dynamics, right? What are the childhood experiences that we may want to forgive? We may want to reframe the meaning we gave. Remember, we control two things in life: the meaning we give to what has occurred and our response. Other than that, we cannot control another. We cannot, change things, right? So the only thing we can change is to reframe the meaning, right? To have an open conversation, to understand other people's perspectives and where they're coming from and how that feels. Okay, so this is the first part of what I'd like to share today, but I'd love to, make this an engaging process. I don't know how this technology works. I hope it will be supportive for us, but I'd like to begin and just ask, what is occurring as I shared? What was triggered? You may agree, you may disagree, you may think this is not what I signed up for. This is not what I'm trained for. So who has the first question? And I don't know how this works, but I'm going to put my hand up and hope that this technology will help us move through. I see there's 23 participants, but I don't know how to okay, all I see is hello and good. Okay. Can you please consider to write down questions in the chat, because I don't see how we're able to speak. Okay. Well, I guess I'll just continue. So what I didn't want to make this about me, because I'm here to be of service, and that's why we built out what we've built out, caring for families from Asia to Middle East to Africa to Europe. And so what I'll do until I'm able to, be able to speak or to take questions, what I'll do is I'll maybe share a case study. So there, a family, a second gen who was taking care, in charge of the business, came to us as well as other family advisors and said that we would like to prepare for the next generation. And of course, the elements that Jeremy spoke to about governance and constitution and all those pieces, of course, are fundamental, right? They are foundational in order to have some clarity in terms of what we've agreed to and how and what's acceptable and unacceptable. But before the idea of bringing in the next gen came in, I suggested and said, have you truly acknowledged and addressed what has occurred in your generation and really cleared the air for you to bring in the next gen into the space of the family business, whether they come in as active or shareholders or on the family council? Have you done that work? Are you able to have conversation between just you as siblings in truth, in authenticity? And the answer was no, right? They were not able to have those conversations. And as you can imagine, it was not only impacting the relationships between themselves, but it was impacting the relationships between the spouses, and it was impacting the business, right? The business decisions were being made where some were pleasing others, even though they were not aligned with it. Some felt that the others were very, seat of the pants in terms of their decisions and way of moving in this world. And there was no accountability in terms of basic things like how many, working remotely or holidays. And so the process began where they first learn how they are communicating, right? Doing that, the individual dynamic process that I spoke to, right? So yes, building the resilience from a health perspective, from the physicality, but then looking at the individual dynamic, right? And working on themselves and understanding communication and understanding how each one was communicating, and then understanding how the other was, so they could look at things from their perspective, from their lens, and therefore be able to relate with them and understand and have a conversation that was not, against, it was actually together, and understanding that we are different, right? That we, even though we grew up together, right? That we are three unique individuals bringing in value, right? And the thing I forgot to mention was that between the sibling, one wanted to continue, one wanted to call it a day, and one was on the fence. So it was really a monumental time. And the person who wanted to call it a day felt it was just too painful to remain because there was so much that was unaddressed. There was so much that he was carrying through the years and years of being in the system. And he just wanted out. While, one of them was very keen to continue because they had the honor and privilege to, take a business that was built by their father and grow it into this incredible multinational that was, changing lives and transforming communities and adding value in a way that, they had never imagined, right? And so as they had those conversations, as they went back, right, it was all facilitated to the playground when they were young, and they played together and going back to the basics, of laughing together and doing pranks and being naughty. And of course there were tears as they remembered those days, right? They were tears as they spoke out and shared how they felt hurt and misunderstood and ostracized and all of those things, right? And then as they learn to slowly communicate and be open, and of course it took physical retreats, it took facilitation and other realms, but they were willing and had the courage, right? As I speak to families, I just did a survey on aspirations, and they said you need to have the courage and take the risk, right? But many are not willing to have that courage. We talk about harmony, but true harmony is only possible through authentic communication and trust. Then there is a possibility to really relate and have coherence within, right? And you fast forward during COVID, they thrived, the business is rocking, and as a result, they are more than happy to continue. And now they're all wanting to stay together, but are okay if one day it is required by the next gen or requested by the next gen to split the business. So they're actually at peace with either way. There's no energy that's conflicting within the space. So that's, an example of a case study. Again, I don't know how this Q&A is working. I still don't have can anybody just type in so I can see that you are able to say things, or? Okay. So I'll give you, I guess, another case study, right? Another case study where we had a family where one of the next gen was studying to become in the number space. He had gone to a top business school and was preparing to be in the number space, and all of a sudden the child starts to make choices